The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. South Dakota seemed like the perfect place to unplug. But I ended up connecting to the world around me. A world where each sunset was painted, where I felt adventure's pulse with every step, and where cold water trickling, pine swaying, and grunting bison became my favorite soundtracks. I just wish I didn't have to leave. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome back to the Jello Jiggling Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ward, and damn, Dan, see what you did to us. See what you did to all of Lakers Nation. Talk about a frustrating few days. All signs led to Dan Hurley taking this job, becoming Darvin Ham's successor, and providing some hope for the future, while lining his pockets with a ton of cash. But after Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 full days, he decides, not halfway through today, I guess. He decides on Monday he's staying at UConn, potentially leverage this into a huge deal with UConn. I don't know if they'll match, but probably make him happy. Bummer, dude. That's all I can say. It's what a bummer. And funny enough, this is the second time I'm recording this podcast because my dumbass, who got barely any sleep last night because of all this crap, and then doing what I had to do in the morning with the graphics and everything, and then getting on the Lakers Nation podcast, and then immediately after jumping on this, recording 25 minutes of silence. It was quite frustrating, and then I had another writing shift to get on. So I'm gassed, man. I am tired, and I'm sure I speak for everybody who covers this team. And it's you know what? I would be lying to say I didn't at one point think this was totally going to happen, and then another think it's not. I mean, I would say more of this morning when you saw the things develop, like he was going to announce it at the school, the practice getting pushed back, I think a couple times, because he wanted to make this announcement before practice. I mean, obviously makes sense, but man, just what a devastating blow. I mean, it's been a real bummer bummer to the end of the season for the Lakers and a bummer to the start of the offseason, especially when this looked like such a promising development happening. You go from JJ Redick, who hasn't coached a day in his life, to this guy who's won two titles on the college level, becoming a legend on the college level, and having just that kind of passion you want to see out of a head coach, which seems kind of rare these days. And him wanting to take on the challenge of coming to LA, and it just didn't happen. I mean, I think there was a ton of different factors that went into this. Sounds like his wife was a major one. She didn't want to leave. The East Coast is home. LA's kind of a scary place if you've never lived there before, especially coming from Connecticut. It's big, bright lights, crazy. The pace of life is completely different. I remember when I moved to Colorado years back, to join my family who had been out here for years. And I was just blown away by how the pace of life changed from, I always say it's like going 100 miles an hour and slowing down to like 40. Everybody's just on a different pace. No one's on a rush to get anywhere. And I feel like that's in a lot of different places, probably outside of New York and LA, right? I'm sure there's a few other big cities that are like that, maybe Chicago, Dallas, or whatever. But it's a shock to the system. I mean, I remember coming here and just being pissed because people were just going so slow. It's mostly on the road you see it, right? But it's you get in grocery stores, you get in, just things that you would do day to day, and just literally no one's in a rush, and talking to people like it's just way different pace. People don't know how to I don't know how to say it without sounding like a dick, but it's just different. It's just a different pace of life, and I can totally understand why she would be terrified of that. And then there's the huge expectations, and I'm sure his stress level, especially with as passionate as he is, would just go through the roof in LA, because the odds are he wasn't going to be successful. The odds are for any coach that comes to LA is not going to be successful, regardless of who they have on the roster. I mean, just talk to Mike D'Antoni, Mike Brown. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are, they had a reputation as being a good coach, kind of innovative, and they get here and they just, it just didn't work. I don't blame the guy. Stay there, go win 3 titles at UConn, which is unprecedented. Well, it's not unprecedented. I think John Wooden's team did it way back when, but in the modern era, I'd say is unprecedented. Even back-to-back titles is unprecedented in the college game with, the short amount of time they have to work with these kids who want to make the jump to the next level. I guess maybe that'll be different now since they'll be getting paid and the NIL and all that stuff. But it's still impressive. But the crazy part, I think, though, this whole thing, which has kind of gotten blown out of proportion, is the fact that after the Woj report on Thursday, it was another report came out that he was going to get offered $100 million guaranteed. And then in the end, today, we find out he only got offered 70 over 6. So paying him about $11.6 million a year, which puts him in the highest paid coaches category, top 6, I believe. Kerr's number 1, followed by Pop, Eric Spoelstra, Ty Lue just recently, Monty Williams, and he would come in 6th. I think Monty's winning. He's earning 13 with Detroit. That might not last very much longer. But what I did find interesting is he was offered more than some of the head coaches in the league that have an NBA title on their resume, which include Coach Bud, who just took the job with Phoenix, about $10 million a year. $10 million seems to be like, you go above that, you're in an elite category. You make that, you're in that kind of on the cusp, or like you have a title or reputation, or as being a good coach, blah blah blah. So Bud, Nick Nurse, Doc Rivers, Mike Malone, Rick Carlisle, all of those guys, he would be making at least $1 million more, or $1.5 million more a year. Kind of crazy when you think of it like that, because say any one of these guys, with the exception of Bud, because they had a chance, were available. I don't know if they'd take Doc either, but I'm sure they would jump at Nick Nurse in a heartbeat. They would jump at Mike Malone, even though there's, kind of bad blood there. He's still a great coach. And they jump at Rick Carlisle, I'm sure. All have, all great coaches, all coached superstars, and have a sustained level of, I don't know if excellence is a little high, but they've done it over and over again for years, right? It's not like a fluke, you know. Maybe some people call Vogel a fluke for winning and then getting canned a couple of years later. But he did really well in Indiana. He may have had a shit turn in Orlando, but I don't think he had anybody to work with in Orlando. And then Phoenix was just set up for failure. I mean, feel bad for Vogel. Just 2 bad coaching stretches in a row. That's just the way they ended. I mean, I'm sure he'll remember LA forever, and you know, dine out on that title for forever, and still make good money on the next job he gets because of it. But it's just a bummer. But anyway, now that this is off the table, Hurley going back, bound to sign a huge extension, whatever that's going to be. It gets really thin, man. I mean, it just goes back. It reverts back. It's a really bad look because you dive in all in on this guy after supposedly being all in on Redick and James Borrego getting a lot of consideration, 2 interviews or whatever. That's another weird thing. I think that Woj's report today is saying that the Lakers going to meet with JJ for the first time, when it was reported not that long ago that they had already met with him. Just weird. I mean, there's always conflicting reports from one insider to another. It's whatever they hear, they give to the rest of us. But it just strange. And who knows? Redick might be looking at all this and just being like, I'm really gonna sign with these guys and then deal with all this crap like on a daily basis. Like, it's just how the hype train. I mean, it was only 4 days, and people went nuts, and people are going nuts now because of how it all fell apart. Like, I mean, I think being a head coach in the NBA is a thankless job now, unless you are those top guys, Spoelstra, Pop, and Kerr. Because I mean, look at Pop; he hasn't had a great season since Duncan retired, really. I mean, I'm sure that'll turn around with Wembanyama and whoever they get this summer. That won't last very long, right? But still, these guys, I don't think they get a ton of backlash. I think they get just as much praise, if not a little bit more, and makes that job desirable. But that's because they have a reputation, because they built that up. Everyone else is kind of like struggling to get to that point, right? Struggling to get to that level. If they'll ever get there. It's just a tough, thankless job, man. It's like being a referee. It's a thankless job. You get barked at constantly. And then with the coach, it's like every move you make, even if it's not your fault, you have to take the bullet, right? Like, you have to stand in front of everybody. You're the fall guy. Regardless, you're the fall guy, Like I said, those other guys get some leeway. Guys like Phil Jackson, Pat Riley in the past, they get a little leeway just because of how much success they've had. But these other dudes, Borrego, are you kidding me? He comes in and he starts to struggle. I mean, he's going to be public enemy number 1 pretty fast. Hurley's already public enemy number 1 in LA, and he only just turned down the job, And you can't really blame him when you weigh the pros and cons of both places. He's set up. He's not set up to fail in LA, but it'd be really tough for him to be successful. And they don't give you much time. They give you 2 years. Darvin Ham had a winning record, and he went to the playoffs consecutive years, West Finals, out after 2 years. I mean, it's a different circumstance because he lost the locker room. He lost Anthony Davis, and you're not gonna win over many people if you lose the guys that are winning you games, right? We're keeping you in the hunt and contention. So that's the thing is, what the hell do they do now? What the hell do they do now? I mean, it's an obvious pivot to JJ and Borrego, which is what Woj said in his report, after the dust kind of settled a little bit, saying that they were going to go after this guy. But Borrego sounds like he is about to become the Cavs' new head coach, which is reported today, I think, by Windhorst, because he's the Cleveland guy. It sounded like that deal is close. And if I'm him, I'm taking that job. I'm not taking LA. I think you get a little bit of leeway in Cleveland, even though Cleveland seems like a mess because of the whole Mitchell, Garland, Jared Allen situation. Like it's, there's a lot that needs to be taken care of, but you got more leeway. You still have a talented team, which should make the playoffs for the next few years if Mitchell stays. But yeah, take that over coming to LA. I mean, I think you got to be a guy like Hurley to come here, to come to LA and coach this team, coach this franchise. I mean, I shouldn't just say team because it's the franchise. It doesn't really matter who's on the roster. You're going to be under a lot of pressure regardless because this city doesn't take losing well, and it shouldn't because it's got 17 banners hanging in the rafters, right? So it comes with expectations. So, but what I found was interesting was Jay Wright, formerly of Villanova, being mentioned as the stealth candidate by NBA insider Mark Stein recently. If you look at his resume, it's not much different from Hurley's, right? He's older, though. I think Hurley's 51. He is 62. But, there's some things on there where you're just like, damn, dude, this guy was killing it when he was coaching. He hasn't coached in two years. 22 is when he walked away. But he walked away. He didn't get fired from what I remember. He just walked away, was kind of tired. I mean, he coached 21 consecutive seasons on the college level. And he had since his assistants at a few schools before coming back to Villanova. He was an assistant. I think he was a Hofstra as a head coach. And then he came to Villanova and then became crazy successful. Won 2 national titles. Brunson was one of his star players. Josh Hart, former Laker, which are now all on the Knicks. I think there's 3 of them now. DiVincenzo, I think, is another guy on there. But I think that's kind of a home run too. But the thing is, there's no super vague. He just said he was a stealth candidate, so I don't know what that means. I mean, does that mean the front office wants to go after him and hasn't spoken with him and have no idea whether or not he wants to get back in coaching? Has he been dropping little hints like, hey, look, I want to come back, but I'll only do it for an NBA gig because I want that challenge? Who knows? I guarantee we're going to hear over the next few days, I would assume, if not week, what his mindset is. Maybe he does an interview. I don't know. I think he's an analyst right now. I don't know if it's just for the college game or what, because I don't follow college basketball like I used to back in the day when I was, in my teens, when it was really fun and competitive. Now I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me the same way. I'm sure a lot of you can relate, but I'm not sure what he's doing. But if he is just taking, a cushy job at ESPN or whatever, and he gets offered a deal like this, just the 70, not the 100 million, he might just jump on it. Just be like, screw it. Why not? I got a chance to coach LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Maybe I still got it. Maybe I can do this. But who knows? We'll find out in the coming days. I'm sure of it, because that was my first question when this became official that Hurley was no longer an option. I'm like, don't fall back just to JJ Redick. Look around, like do your homework, find a guy who is worthy of this. Find a guy who could, hypothetically make you a winner right away. Hurley was that guy, even though some people said he was a slow cook or whatever. Like it would take a few years for him to develop these guys and get that system in there. Maybe Jay Wright's different. I don't know. I don't know. It's just frustrating for all of us, frustrating. I got no sleep. Frustrating that the decision did not go the Lakers' way. And now that they're going to be scrambling. I mean, Pelinka must be stressed out of his mind. He probably thought he had a sure deal, because from what Jeff Goodman of the Field of 68 podcast said, and I think he used to be an ESPN guy, I guess apparently Hurley flipped his decision from wanting to coach the Lakers to not within a couple days. And he did it a couple times. So it must have been really confusing. That's probably why we got no reports on it. No like leaks or anything, because he was keeping it close to the chest. Or is it the vest? The chest? What's the saying? He was keeping it to, probably just between him and his wife, and maybe Luke Murray or whatever. And that didn't get out, obviously. I mean, we literally didn't know what was going to happen this morning. None of us. And Shams is probably still sitting there somewhere being like, damn, I got to report something. He's been locked out of this whole situation. I'm curious to see what his next tweet is, if involving the Lakers. But that's interesting too, because maybe they had it, like, it was solid, and he just changed his mind, and he's free to do that. That's his prerogative. I don't blame him. I mean, that's a huge life decision, and you're moving from one coast to another. Your wife's not crazy about the idea. I mean, you're gonna make a boatload of money, but I think that money is just not a problem for him for the rest of his life, and his kids and his grandkids probably. And then he came out with a statement saying, let me do it verbatim here. I'm humbled by this entire experience. At the end of the day, I'm extremely proud of the championship culture that we have built at Connecticut. We met as a team before today's workout, and our focus right now is on getting better this summer and connecting as a team as we continue to pursue championships. Basic, PR response, but yeah, I mean, he seems content with the whole thing. And this from Goodman, he wrestled with the decision since Wednesday. And then the news obviously dropped on Thursday. This was not an easy decision, and it wasn't a money decision. See, a lot of people saying like, oh, why didn't they throw everything at him to make it, like a Godfather offer where you can't refuse it? Didn't drive him. I honestly think it was the sheer challenge of what he would have to take on. But maybe knowing how that would take a toll on him, which, is going to take a toll on his wife, just because share the same house, same bed. Like it's going to happen. It's that stress just boils over. Wasn't worth it in his eyes. And who knows, maybe he's right. But the real question is, like I said, what the hell are they going to do next? Because there just seems to be no clear indication of what's next. I thought we would get something today. And ironically, right before the Hurley news broke, Woj drops a report that Darvin Ham is going back to the Bucks as an assistant under Doc Rivers. That one kind of blew me away too. I'm like, damn, dude. Damn. I mean, imagine how humbling that's got to be. You finally get a head coaching gig. It lasts 2 years, and then you're going to go right back to the same job you went to. It kind of sucks. At least he's got a gig. I don't think Darvin's a terrible guy. He's just not a great coach. And maybe he's just, assistants where he should be. Did think it was interesting that he took that job, but he didn't take the job on Coach Bud's staff. I was like, I don't know if the relationship between those two is because he left Milwaukee, or it's just situational. Like, because I think Milwaukee's in a better situation than Phoenix. Phoenix really kind of shit the bed this year, right? Getting swept in the first round of the playoffs by Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is great. Timberwolves is a great team, but no experience there. And they get bounced in 4 games with 3 legit superstars. Probably 2 legit superstars and 1, star who can't stay healthy. But I thought that was interesting. Maybe he's got a really good relationship with Giannis and the players over there, or just missed Milwaukee altogether. That's kind of a culture shock too, if you think about it, going from Wisconsin to LA. He's got experience in LA. It's tough. Maybe a quieter life, even though there's pressure on them with Dame there now. It's not as bad. And, the future could be bright with a move or 2 in the summer. Or just the fact those 2 getting healthy, So I can't really blame them. I just thought it was interesting timing. What would the odds be on that? Ham getting a job before Hurley even makes a decision? I would not have guessed that. I totally forgot Ham was still looking for a job. Put it that way. But this is obviously an evolving situation, which will change constantly as we move forward. The Dallas Mavericks are struggling big time, down 0-2. They could be bounced in 2 more games. I don't think so. I think they'll get at least 1 in Dallas. But I do get the sense that series is over. They just Boston just looks like a better team, better all-around team. And I think the big difference there is probably Drew Holiday. He is given Kyrie fits, and he is producing on the other end at the same time. That's just a double-edged sword for Boston. So I don't know. Unless somebody else got to make shots. Luka is the only one that seems to be making shots consistently. I think Luka missed 4 shots yesterday, which is crazy for how many he puts up and the difficulty of those shots. But unless Kyrie, I think it's going to be Kyrie and somebody else is going to have to step up. PJ Washington. That's pretty much only guy. I was going to say Lively, but Lively's role is different. They just need scoring. And these guys hitting shots. Just do what they did against Minnesota. It just hasn't carried over. And if they lose Game 3, it's over. That's a must-win game. That's just it's over. It has that same feel of Minnesota against Dallas. Minnesota just couldn't put it together enough. The only difference there was Ant didn't really show up, and Luke is showing up. It's just everybody else isn't showing up, which is going to exhaust him, and he was already banged up. So, but that's the rumor about Redick has been, he has to finish his obligation with ESPN to cover the rest of the finals, and once that happens, then he can talk or sign or agree to a deal, right? So that'll probably happen within 2 weeks. But until that gets to that point where he can put pen to paper and kind of focus solely on the Lakers, which I think is interesting too, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen to his podcasts. You can't, once you're a head coach, you can't be talking about other teams and players. You just can't. He's got to hand it over to somebody or just call it quits altogether, which is another thing. If I was him, I would not take the job either. You got 2 podcasts that are pretty damn popular, a good ESPN gig. You're already covering the finals. He's only been doing it for a few years. He's already doing that. What are you leaving for, man? Unless he's just got that itch to compete too, and he just really wants to take the opportunity, and maybe he wanted to be a coach all along. Who knows? I think he's given up way too much to do that, but that's me. I was never a player on the professional level, so I don't know, if he's found that hard to replace, which I'm sure they all do, maybe this is the closest thing to it in his eyes. So who knows? I mean, it's more of goddamn who knows. It's like every freaking week. Who knows? And I wish it wasn't like that, but that's just the case. It's the circus continues, moving on to another town. Like who knows? I was about to say it again. I'm kind of hoping another name kind of comes out of nowhere and it's like, oh right, yeah, he would make sense. Like Jay Wright makes sense, but we haven't heard a peep. He hasn't even been mentioned in anything that I've seen today, so that can't be a good sign. But you gotta get the sense that if he was even considered, he's going to get a phone call, right? But we'll see. But until that time, I'm sure I'll hop on here. I mean, I've been hopping on here more often, and I kind of love doing this. A little bit more experience, getting a little bit better at it. And but until next time, peace.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.
When you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.